President Buchanan is finally going to issue a State of the Union address. Will he offer any help? Welcome to Civil War in Hindsight. I'm Lieutenant Tommy. That's Prospector Johnny. And today, Johnny, President Buchanan finally makes a statement.
All right, so he's going to help fix things on his way out. He's going to smooth everything out. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. It's about time he takes some leadership.
Right. He is a sitting president, of course.
Yep.
We were kind of talking about last month how Lincoln was not really making a lot of comments, but it's not his job to. He's still the president-elect. But we'll start off on December 1st this week with Florida actually calling their legislator to order to discuss the issues of the hand and how specifically to go about them. And those issues, of course, are secession and the expansion of slavery.
So they're thinking about seceding too, then? Or are they talking about what South Carolina's
Yes, they're calling their legislature together.
Okay.
They're not voting on it yet. They're just in the initial phases of is this something that we are thinking about doing? Should we have a meeting to actually specifically discuss it? Obviously, there's a lot of turmoil going on, so we'll sit down.
Talking about it.
Talking about it, but no decisions are made this week in Florida. They're kind of taking a wait-and-see approach.
All right.
Which is understandable, I guess.
On
December 3rd, the second session of the 36th Congress of these United States is convened in Washington. The initial expectation is that this will be a lame duck session because it is the last session of Congress.
Isn't every session a lame duck session?
Well, pretty much. It has a little bit more life to it than what was expected. Obviously, the Congress is talking about the issues at hand, again being slavery and again being secession. There are some key congressmen in absentia. They are not showing up from the southern states. And obviously, no legislation is passed this week. December 4th, it's going to wind up coming towards the end of the week with President Buchanan issuing his State of the Union address to Congress. He starts off by saying that the State of the Union is not good.
No.
Thank you for that clarification, President Buchanan.
People are trying to leave. It's not great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he kind of messed things up. But at least he's aware of it, I guess.
which is better than some presidents we've had in the past.
Yeah.
The long continued, he starts off by stating that, like I said, the state is not good, and I quote, "The long continued and intemperate interference of the northern people with the question of slavery in the southern states has at length produced its rational effects," saying that essentially this interference from the north into the south has now come to a head. We are at conflict with each other. He does, however, go on to say that he encourages the slave states to be left alone, and he insists that the states are sovereign to the federal government and their rights should not be interfered with within the state's boundaries. States should have the right to do as they choose. Although the Constitution would be in direct conflict to that. Yes, the Constitution would be direct conflict to that when it states the federal law supersedes state law, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
He then states that, and I quote, "The election of any one of our fellow citizens to the office of president does not in and of itself offer just cause for the dissolution of the Union." So basically he's saying that it doesn't matter who we elected as the president, so long as they were a legal citizen.
Yeah, that's not reason to leave.
It's not reason to leave. It's not reason to dissolve the Union. He further states...
because it's a democracy.
Yes, he further states that the evil may never come unless we rashly bring it upon ourselves. So on one hand, he's stating that the state should be left to their own demise, but on the other, he's outright condemning secession. He's saying, no, we shouldn't secede, we shouldn't fight, be rational. Let's think about this. He calls for calmer times, and he says that if South Carolina attacks the federal forts, which they have talked about, because there's this question as to the federal forts, Fort Moultrie, Fort Sumter specifically, are they, since they're technically not on the mainland of South Carolina and they are federal installations, does South Carolina have the rights to take them over? And Buchanan basically says that please be calm and rational about this, and if you do go and attack the forts, expect that the federal installations will defend themselves, and rightfully so.
Well, yeah, if you're getting attacked, you're going to shoot. I mean, They're not just going to let themselves be taken over.
He then, again, goes on to his back and forth mentality here, where he says that that it is not the executive, within the executive's power to interfere in conflicts between the state and the federal government.
Then whose job is it?
I'm not sure. He's essentially stating that any conflicts between the individual states and the federal government revolving around whether or not they own federal installations or whether or not they should or can secede, that's not the realm of the federal government to decide. He further states that it's the rights of the states to decide their own fates. So again, he's trying to offer. I see what President Buchanan is doing. He's trying to offer compromises here. He's saying that I don't agree with secession. It is not legal. Please do not do it. But then on the other hand, which makes the South mad, but it makes the North mad because he's offering no means for the federal government to actually intervene and stop secession from happening.
So it sounds like he's trying to play both sides, but he's playing the wrong side of both of them.
It kind of sounds
like he's trying to say things on both sides, but he's making everybody mad instead of everybody happy.
Exactly, and he is again reiterating the lack of wanting to send military enforcement down to curb bad feelings, I guess, to try to prevent by force a secession. So he is again ignoring Major Anderson's calls last week for bringing reinforcements to Fort Moultrie or to even garrisoning Fort Sumter at all.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess I can respect him on that end because I'm not entirely sure if sending the military down would calm things down. I think it might have the opposite effect here. But
yeah, no,
again, he continues to play both sides. He's saying on one hand that we should allow the free states to be free, the slave states to be slave. His final part of his speech, he actually does mention that he wants to have. He recommends that a new amendment is made to the Constitution to federally protect all slaves or slave states' rights to be slave states. So essentially he wants a federal amendment that actually, in the Constitution, protects slave states to be slave states, and then furthers it and says that the property of those states should be defended at all costs. So if there is a fugitive slave that runs to the north, that should be in the federal Constitution as well, that says that northern state that's a free state is obligated to return the property back down to the south. So again, playing both sides here. Well, there's already Jim Crow laws, not Jim Crow laws. There's already laws in place that essentially guarantee that the northern states have to bring the southern. If a slave runs away from Kentucky and gets into Indiana, they can from Kentucky go into Indiana and forcibly bring that slave back.
Yeah,
and the local authorities in Indiana have to help bring said slaves back.
Okay.
So he's not helping. He's not offering any solutions.
No.
He's staying in the middle ground, which I guess is kind of a normal thing for a politician to do.
Well, but especially he's kind of in his, last little bit of his presidency. He's just trying to ride this out and get to the end.
He's trying to get to the end without a secession happening underneath his watch. But it still might. I misspoke last week when I said I think it was the 10th of December that the South Carolina is going to vote on the 20th of December about secession. So we are essentially a little over 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away from this vote from South Carolina.
That's a big vote.
Whether or not they should secede or not. And he's offering nothing from the federal point of view to aid or persuade this from happening. So pick a side, one side or the other. At this point, if there is a war that's going to happen.
He's trying to please everybody right now. Because, like you said, he doesn't want this to happen on his watch, so he's just trying to be like, no, nothing's going to happen or whatever.
Well, the week's going to end when on December 5th, President-elect Lincoln will strongly condemn Buchanan's State of the Union, specifically against the point of where the states have the right to secede and giving the responsibility of state secession into the states' hands. He said that is not what a federal, the federally elected highest position of this office. You should give us better answers than that. The federal government should have the rights to keep the government intact in its entirety, with all the states intact in its entirety. Yeah. And you're not, it is not the state's decision to do that. It is the federal government's decision to let them leave or not.
Right, yeah, it's the United States. Like, we can't just... Because then what, do we just let them come back if they want to come back after they secede? And they're like, oh, it turned out this didn't go well.
I mean, Buchanan does warn, again, in his wishy-washy ways, that secession is nothing less than revolution, and he is correct. It is nothing less than revolution.
Yeah.
The highest legal mind of the court has said, flat out, it is not legal for states to secede. And I guess this is where we're going to end this week, Johnny. And I'm not given any confidence. Any hope that I might have had at the end of November is now officially gone. I guess we will see what happens in the lead up to South Carolina's vote on secession. We will see if any other states join suit. Yep. I am hopeful, though, because at least as of right now, other than Georgia raising some money, no other state has called for a vote as of yet. So that's good. Maybe
so
it's
South Carolina and Florida, right?
Well,
or I guess Florida talked about it, but they haven't called a vote.
No. So hopefully it'll be contained to just South Carolina, but we'll see in the next coming weeks. That's it for this week in Civil War and Hindsight. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and join us on our other shows of Historic Hindsight and This Week in History.